Good morning. It's May 21st here on Gardening Simplified, the Povey Homestead, and we're going to give you an update on the changes here on the homestead and what the garden's looking like. Completed the gate project, and we've relocated the fence on the east end of the garden, which it's left a little gap between the beds that we use for our garlic. Got the compost bins built. I got my compost off the trailer. It's in here and in here. We've started to got the new compost pile built in here, so we'll be composting that. We did some flame weeding from where we moved the fence, and that gets rid of most of them. We'll have to probably come back and touch up where there's a little grass coming in. Also in this garlic bed, harvested out a little more of the garlic and decided to use the space. There's a zucchini planted in that area, which it'll want to take over quite a bit up there, but the garlic isn't that far from being harvested. And down here put some Blue Lake green beans in here. We didn't plant any this year because we have so many canned up that we didn't really need any, but we decided it'd be good to have a few fresh ones and leave the canned ones for down the road. Now, this garlic here, for those who's followed, this was planted late and it's coming up. And they had some that wasn't coming up, the little bitty garlic that's in that area is coming up, and then there's a few more that's starting to come up down here. So those will be late. I don't know if they'll turn into a clove bulb or if it'll just be a solid bulb. We'll find that out. Now we have the potatoes here. These are some little Yukon Golds, and these were actually store-bought, so they might not even come up, but they're in there. They started like they were chitting real lightly, so we'll see what happens. These here are the magic mollies that were planted. This is later than what we normally would have started them, but they've got plenty of growing time, and if the heat gets bad, these can always be moved to a shady spot. This is the Atlantic giant pumpkin, which it's starting to really get bigger, and here's the one that come up late. I just got it in the ground. We'd actually moved the fence so the water was inside the garden. We'd move the garden prep table area here over by the fence, and what we've got here is the zinnias and the dahlias and some marigolds. These will need to be put out. And then over here we've got our little black magic kale, the dinosaur kale, and the rocket arugula. It won't be long, and I'll be putting some of that out. Like I say, we've redid the fence. We've actually took this section and brought it over. It's kind of a little hard to tell, but brought it over to the end of the shipping container. We'll be taking out this section and moving it over. I've started doing a little flame weeding along the side and taking down wild grapevines that had come up on this fence. Now the tomatoes are doing good. Like I say, on these early girls, these are a bush early girl. I don't think I'll be planting them again. The production just isn't that great. Now some of them do have a few on there, but they're just not really that great. So now these here are my unknowns. We'll find out, but they tend to have better production. They're filling out faster than the early girl bushes. They're doing pretty good. Now some of these early girl bushes, just like this one here, it's the early girl bush is supposed to be a determinant. The early girl is actually indeterminate, and as you can see by this one here, it really seems to be growing like an indeterminate, except it's not been pruned, so it's gone wild. But the seeds are all over the place. Some are big, some are little. Some do have better production than the others, but they're just not, the fruit size is not as big on most of these as it is on the celebrities. There are a few that have some bigger tomatoes on them. But on the celebrities in a whole, they just have a lot more production. As you can see, they're really loaded up. They've got some decent sized tomatoes coming on, and they have a lot of them. There's just they're just loaded up with tomatoes. Looks like the kale is just going to end up being composted. It was late, and I thought maybe we'd get some size before the bugs took over, but the bugs have taken over, so the kale and the mustard and turnips are going to be pulled up and composted. Now the peppers, they're doing good. They're getting loaded up. I picked a bunch and made 2 quarts and a pint of sliced jalapenos, pickled jalapenos. So I'll have them for my nachos and such. Now these little cherry tomatoes, they're doing good. They're starting to set tomatoes. Won't be long. They'll be loaded up. But if you followed the earlier videos, these were quite a bit behind the others. Actually now they are, or the 3 of them here are just about the same height as the others. Now we have bell peppers. They're coming on. It won't be long. We'll be picking some bell peppers. They're loaded up. Good sturdy plants. The cucumbers are coming on. They're starting to set just a few, and hopefully the bees will get in here and get more active, because there's been a lot that's of female flowers, but they just haven't taken and got fertilized. These are the Cherokee purple tomatoes. Now one looks like the bugs decided to eat on it, but these are really taking off now that they're in the ground. I had a few of my beet plants that kind of survived, and I went ahead and threw them in there in that little spot. The over here we have the yellow squash, and they're coming on, but it was kind of strange that on this one, and I had never seen that before, when they first started setting to put on squash, the male flowers weren't out. The female ones, which, you know, they just rot and fall off when they don't get fertilized, but there weren't any male flowers on them at the start. And that's usually odd, because normally they come on first. The purple hull peas are looking good. I'm going to do a little changing up next year. I always plant these way too early, but it just, as you can see, I have to deal with so much extra grass. I'm going to change my planting schedule for next year. I figure get in the ground, then I don't have to mess with it, but actually it causes extra work. Now over here we have the broccoli, which was planted late, and you can see it has a bunch of holes. I saw just a couple of holes and I blamed it on the few grasshoppers that was coming around, but it was actually cabbage loopers. I sprayed them with BT, but then it rained, and I actually went back and checked them the next day, had some more. So I took and pinched most of those off and went back the next day. There were still some, so I took and sprayed them again with BT. This little one here, which I've taken off a bunch of leaves, it was really stressing it. The ants had got in, fire ants had decided to nest up around that one, so we had to deal with that. And also this one over here, but yesterday I took the leaves off every day that it was kind of wilting down, trying to keep those extra leaves supported. The cabbage, which like I say, it's got holes too, but as you can see, all the new leaves are in good shape, and I just continue to check and make sure we don't have any more cabbage loopers coming in. We've got the broadleaf lettuce here. It's time to pick some more leaves off this. It just grows like crazy, so it doesn't really take this much, but I had some space and had some seed. These are my little onions that I started from seed that's mixed in here with the lettuce. The romaine, I've been picking some of the leaves off of this. Most of these will just pick the leaves and let them keep growing instead of letting them try to make heads. The potatoes, now we've been harvesting some out. You can see some empty spots where the voles are getting to them. They'll get to dying down like this one, which it's getting about time that they'll all have to be harvested anyway, because the blight that gets on these things and starts killing them out. So we'll be harvesting these pretty soon. The ones that are as they fall over, we'll take and go ahead and harvest them out. The sugar pie pumpkins are starting to reach out and take off. The corn is starting to put on ears. Hopefully we'll get a good crop of corn. It's looking like it should be. We'll see how it comes out, and hopefully we've dealt with the earworms. Now we have our other squash here, our butternut that's running in here, and it's going to take over. And like I say, the corn should shade it enough that it ought to do real good in the heat. We have two kinds of corn. The squash kind of separates it. We've got a candy corn and peaches and cream, and you can tell that there's a difference between them. Now we got down here, we've got our table queen squash, and there's a few more that's over there. They're doing good. They're growing out and going to take over. This here is our buttercup squash, and it should do the same and take over. We do have a little bit of turnip down in here that isn't ate by bugs, but and might go ahead and pick some of it. But turnip greens, normally whenever they grow real slow, to me the greens get too tough bitter, and the taste is too strong. Now it's time to get down in here and deal with some of the grass again, and if I don't get it pulled out, I'll have a lot more grass seed down here. I'm going to flame weed the edge of this fence line and start moving it out this week. The sweet potatoes seem to be taking hold. Now I'm going to change up the time I plant these too next year, because what I do is I always put them in too early and they just sit there and so I'm not going to bother. It'd be a whole lot easier to just keep their bed space covered, keep the weeds dead, and then bring them in when it's hot enough and they'll grow. Now this here is the Big Mac's pumpkin. It's flowering good. It should set some pumpkins on it that's got male and female flowers, so it ought to start getting some of them going. It's really taking a good foothold, and it should do pretty good. Now I've been running my overhead sprinkler, and that kind of slows down the growth on some of this, like my watermelon. They're starting to take off, but what happens is when it splatters the water and then it gets a lot of dirt on the leaves, and it kind of slows down the photosynthesis on it. But they are doing good. I need to keep training them off the fence area until I get the fence moved and the weeds dealt with, because if I don't, I'll really have a time trying to get this fence moved. But it doesn't take much, just pull the vines back. This cantaloupe here, it probably won't ever do anything. I could plant another one in its place. This one here is going, but it's kind of like it's stunted too. It should have taken off, but it hadn't. And pretty much that's where we're sitting at now in the garden area and on the homestead. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe if you want to see my newest ones whenever they come out, and hit the bell so you'll be notified. And if you think somebody else can benefit from this video, of course share it. Happy gardening.